Canada has a new kit, two new kits, and they're potentially getting a third for the World Cup. But the first bespoke kits for Canada since the 1986 World Cup, and they are a little bit different. The red one is, a little bit underwhelming. I'd say it kind of draws on that 1972 World Summit Series jersey, but it's the black kit that seems to make all of the headlines, and I did go out of my way and spend some money on it.
Well, I think now at some point we're going to have a petition or some sort of discussion about the inclusion of black in the Canada flag going forward, because between soccer and between hockey and between the Olympics, it feels like, whenever there's a possibility where we would like to include black, and why not? It's sharp, and there's an excuse to be made with black ice and other things of the sort. That was certainly the argument for this kit. But I mean, to look at both, what I would say was solid. I mean, especially for the red kit, it's one of those where I think it'll grow the more you see it, because that's just sometimes kits, a kit's only going to be as iconic as its performances. For example, Canada's last red kit ended up being a little more iconic than we thought, because they had a good Copa America run in them, and all of a sudden that lopsided collar that I still don't like to this day, and I think had they had a normal collar, that kit would have been like 10 out of 10. I think without it, it's like a 7 or an 8. But maybe that detail goes out the window, and with this one, even though it's maybe a bit boring is the word you could throw out, it's easily identifiable. There's a big maple leaf on the front. It's red. It ticks all the boxes you want for a kit at the end of the day, especially a home kit. You want it to be identifiable, to have clear, identity. So you can go fine with that. The one that's interesting is the away kit, because away kit's where you can have fun, where you can be a little different. And Canada's certainly done that. And you know what? It's come to grow on me, although I will say I have one big complaint. And I mean, you'll say it, when you see it in person, I guess it'll be different, but I just don't like the logo on the black kit. I think it is perfect except the logo. I think if they did what they did with the last black kit, which is put a red, white, and black logo on, perfect. 10 out of 10. Great kit. The logo idea is cool, right? Because it's incandescent or whatever they were saying, where it can, you look at it from one side, it's red, and you look at it from another, it's black. But I think if they kept it simple at the logo, it would have been a 10 out of 10 kit. No notes, S tier.
I also think that's an issue I have with it as well, because when you buy the, whether it's the fan version, the replica, the, authentic fan version even, I think it doesn't have the actual crest that it does on the player authentic version. And to have it so strikingly different, especially when that's kind of a defining feature of the kit, I just don't like it when it's such a separate product that you're buying from what's on the pitch. The one I bought it at Sport Check, I think was, $135, an okay price for a kit. That's kind of what they go for these days, and we're used to that. But it looks pretty well what the match one looks like, except for the crest. But another thing I noticed was on some of the cheaper versions of the kit, the patterns of the ice maple leafs throughout aren't actually in the same spot as they are on the authentic one, which is, you see those kind of details skimped out on a little bit when you go down the line. But when you have a kit like the US brought out with the stripes kit, it's pretty consistent that the stripes are going to be the stripes are going to be the stripes throughout the kit.
Yeah, well, that's the one beef I'll always have with authentic versus replicas. And I've seen this a lot in MLS in particular. They're really guilty. I hate that authentic versus replica, you lose parts of the kit. Because for someone as me who loves a kit, you shouldn't be losing a star over a team's logo because you get a cheaper version of the kit. You shouldn't be losing parts of the jersey's design. You shouldn't be losing a collar. Okay, the material can be a bit cheaper. It can be a bit, not as breathable. That's what you pay for, right? If you're paying $100 instead of $200 and you don't have the uber wicking dry fit that wipes away sweat in an instant, I can live with that. That's why you're making that purchase. But I hate having to choose between, especially if your team's won something and has a star, having a star or not, or other parts of the design. And the logo is another one. But even beyond, I think on the authentic kits, I think the logo would still irk me, because the kit is black, white, and red. The red accents are there on the side. I think having the logo not be black, red, and white just kind of throws the eye a bit. It's a bit of a distraction. But otherwise, I think it's a really cool kit. I like that it was bold. I like that it was built with player input. I like that it's inspired off of past Canada successes in black, especially the Ice Tekka. This is essentially the Ice Tekka kit, whether, we're not going to officially call it that. But it's always those little details that stand out. But what I'm most curious about is how they use this black kit, because obviously they're going to use it at the World Cup. What game do you do? I think first game against whoever it is, I think you have to go red. It's a first home World Cup game. You got to stick with what's iconic. But between Qatar and Switzerland, where are you going black? And maybe is it Switzerland because they're also, either red or white, or do you go against Qatar to kind of set the tone and get a good performance, get some goals, and potentially get a win while wearing that black kit?
It also does seem like that white kit will still come and just be released at a later date. I think initial plans when they initially brought out these kits, from what I've heard, was it was going to be the red and the white were going to be the first and second, and the black was going to be a third, as we all kind of assumed. But the black is now the secondary, which means they will wear this kit. But it's two dark kits. They need to play a team with a lighter option, and they will throughout. I think Qatar has a white option. Switzerland, I imagine, is red and white, and maybe they have a black option too. We've seen that in the past. And of course, if it's Italy in that first game, you'd probably imagine they're wearing blue, but they could also be wearing white. They've released World Cup kits, at least for their hopeful chase of the World Cup. But I think for the schedule, it'll probably be you have to wear red in the first one. I think second one against Switzerland, just because it'll be red and white on the pitch, kind of regardless if you don't go that way, and to make it a little bit different. And then I think probably either black if you have a good result against Switzerland when it comes against Qatar, or otherwise. But I might actually have the schedule wrong on that. It might be the Qatar game first. But I think whatever that second game is, you're wearing the black kit. And then I think against Switzerland, you're wearing the black kit as well. So it might be two group stage games that you're wearing the black kit, because that's clearly the headlining kit for this tournament.
Absolutely. And I think, and the results there might dictate, right? If you do well in the black, you keep it, you do red. For white, I struggle to see it in this rotation for the World Cup, because I think for the white kit and the fact that it wasn't even included in the release kind of suggests it's mostly there as a third kit. It's there for whatever reason you have a clash and you can't wear your red or your black kit. I don't know what case that might be, especially maybe in CONCACAF. There might be a scenario where they're having to pull out the white kit because a team they're playing can't needs them to do it. But that's kind of the vibe I'm getting, and it's interesting because typically you don't see that two colored kits, quote unquote. I know black isn't a color, as someone will point out, but it's two shades kit, right? It's not a white and a color like we see so traditionally in football, which is it's so fascinating because Canada doesn't have any black in the flag, but it's cool to see the rotation, and I just hope to see some good performances in it, because it seems like this kit's going to sell better than any kit ever has, mainly because it appears hopefully they'll understand how much demand there was for the last kits, even though they were boring and generic. So hopefully that alone supply will be around. But how iconic it'll be in the end will be determined by how well they play, right? Like that's always the what it comes down to. And the same goes for the US and their kit. I like that they went for the white and red stripes. I love Mexico's kit. So the hosts, they're certainly dressed the part, but will they perform the part will be what determines the iconicness of a kit, if you can say such a word.
Well, over on SI.com, I went through every single World Cup kit the US has ever had and ranked them all the way from 1930 up until the most recent. And the barber pole kit is only really making its World Cup debut, sort of, because when they had it in kind of the Landon Donovan days in 2012, it never went to the World Cup, of course. And its best moments came kind of in the CONCACAF Gold Cup, which is wild for that to be such an iconic kit. But for Canada, couldn't really make an interesting piece of ranking all the World Cup kits, because it was, here's 3 plain T-shirts, a couple of kits, and then these ones. But so I went back and just ranked the top 20 Canada kits. And there's some wild ones if you go back in the history of Canadian soccer. I do hope we get back to a day where there's Canada across the front of the kit. I think that was something that they had going for a while, but these ones are not bad. I think it could have been even more exciting if they had been with Adidas, though. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the nature of what Nike is able to produce with these World Cup kits and kind of the way they go about things.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if you can have writing on the front of your kits anymore. So maybe Canada on the back could be a nice compromise. It could be a fun way to be like, play for the name on the back, not as much, or play for the name on the front and back. either way, I guess we'll have to see for the future. But hey, bring back this one at the very least in the future, a white number with a bit of a collar. I think we need to see more Canadian kits with collars going forward. I know in this new era where everything's tight, there's not room for fun, expressive collars and buttons and sort. But a lot of potential, and hopefully we see some creativity going forward if Canada can establish themselves as a marquee team that doesn't just get this. Because that's like last point on all these kits. Like, I just think it's cool that Canada got a custom design this time around, and hopefully that becomes the norm for them going forward, because that's, you know, what giant teams get, and that's the treatment you get. And with Umbro, Canada got it, but it's just been frustrating that with this Nike deal, it's been template city up until the recent few numbers, and hopefully that may continue going forward, no matter if Canada stays with Nike, if they go to an Adidas, or if they go to another company. Who knows? Maybe Hummel with its infiltration in the CPL and NSL is an option. You know, Macron, although maybe that ship has sailed, although the kits they made were absolutely fantastic in the CPL, or some other brand we're not even talking about.